If you're having hair problems, I feel bad for your son. I got 99 problems, but the dreads ain't one. I've been doing this a while now. A little while. And sometimes I get asked to break it down. To answer simply, what is the greatest piece of dreadlock advice that I can give? Now, despite having a website here that's full of dreadlock advice, actually settling on the greatest piece of advice that I can give, that's actually quite an easy pick. And that would be to stop worrying about them. Now, at first I realized that may seem like a cop-out, but stick with me here. When my dreads were young, they were loose, they were frizzy, they were messy. Pretty much like any other young set of dreadlocks. And like any young dreadhead, I worried about them. I found myself getting stressed out over every sort of bit of loose hair, every frizzy patch, every unlocked root and tip. And the more time that I spent going over the dreadlocks and finding different bits that annoyed me, the more kind of uninspired by them that I became, and the slower that the progress seemed to be. I believe the sort of "a watched kettle never boils" saying fits quite well here. Then one day, I just kinda stopped worrying. Now, I'm fully aware that just telling someone to stop stressing over something, it usually has the opposite effect. But only once I was able to stop stressing, only once I was able to stop worrying about the little things, was I able to notice and appreciate the big things. What you gotta remember is dreadlocks don't actually need you for their progress. They are quite happy going along doing their own thing without you. Dreadlocks are gonna form with or without your involvement. In fact, in most cases for people like the rest of the population that don't follow lazy dreads, the normal people, they're actively trying to stop dreadlocks forming on their own rather than us guys trying to encourage them to form. As long as you give dreadlocks the time and the space that they need, they're gonna get on with their thing regardless of what you do, regardless of how much you stress or worry about them. I always advise people to make sure that they're washing their dreadlocks correctly, drying their dreadlocks correctly, and separating as and when required. Pretty much anything other than that is an optional extra and isn't really required in order to form nice, healthy dreadlocks. Treating dreadlocks like any other hairstyle, simplifying it down to pretty much only really acknowledging that your hair is there when you're like in the middle of actually washing or drying it, and otherwise just getting on with your day and ignoring the hair, I think that is kind of the most stress-free way to go about having dreads. And when you're not stressing, things just go a lot smoother, trust me. When I stopped antagonizing over each and every detail, when I got on with what I needed to do and just let my dreadlocks get on with what they needed to do, every now and again I would notice the dreadlocks just out of the corner of my eye in a mirror, just like, oh, just check them out. And suddenly, because I wasn't constantly watching them, because I was letting them get on with their own thing, when I did actually pay them a bit of attention, I was able to actually notice the changes. And when the changes become more noticeable, the dreadlocks and their progress becomes a lot more encouraging. And so you're able to replace this negative cycle of constantly seeing the dreadlocks being loose and messy, becoming more worried about them, and then noticing more negative things and becoming more worried. You replace this whole thing with a much more encouraging cycle of seeing progress, becoming more inspired, then being able to see more progress, more inspired, positive cycle versus negative cycle. It's much better. So there's no doubt in my mind that the greatest thing that I was able to do for my dreadlocks was to stop stressing about them. Stop stressing about the dreadlocks, stop over-analyzing every little bit, trust that dreadlocks are gonna form whether I wanted them to or not, and cut out any unnecessary stress. Be patient with them. So while my number one piece of dreadlock advice may not be like an instant fix, a shortcut to mature dreadlocks, if you are able to detach yourself a little, if you are able to step back a bit, you will very likely find that the whole process becomes a lot easier to deal with and that the dreadlocks just become a whole lot more enjoyable. I've had my dreadlocks for nearly 9 years now and still going strong. How long have you had your dreadlocks? Let me know in the comment section below. Or if you have not yet started your dreadlock journey, if you're kind of on the fence and you're checking out this video for research purposes, let me know how you're feeling about dreads at the moment. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you again next time. Farewell! You can check me out on some of these links at the side. I don't know which side it's on because there's a mirror arrangement. But on one of these sides there are some URLs that you are more than welcome to check out. You can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, all of the above or none of the above, whatever floats your boat.